Huegli, what are you doing? I go, I'm in bed. Why the fuck are you in bed? You should be at the racetrack. We got a race car at the racetrack. I go, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm down here helping my buddy Darian with this new A fuel car that this guy Gregg Lawrence from Salem bought. And he broke the rear end. And you got some gears, don't you?
Welcome back to the race shop. Hey, thanks for coming back and joining us today. We're on to our now fourth episode of our podcast, the Cool Kids Club. And if you're here, by God, you too are a cool kid, and we're really thrilled you're here. We've got lots of options of how to spend your time, and if you're here with us, it matters to me because I respect the time that you invest. So today we've got a couple new things to introduce that I'm pretty dang excited about, and an awesome guest. The guest for today is Ron Huegli. And Ron goes back with me, oh dear God, how far? A long ways.
Well, I think
I don't remember how we met, to be honest with you.
Norm Christenson.
Oh, no, that's right. God rest his soul.
God rest Norm.
He was a good man.
1999, you were licensing at Woodburn, and you broke the rear end. And I had a set of 290 gears in my garage for the A-Fuel car that we were building.
Right.
And Norm called me up, and in classic Norm fashion, I said, Sunday morning, I got my wife, we're in bed, and it's like, he goes, Huegli, what are you doing? I go, I'm in bed. Why the fuck are you in bed? You should be at the racetrack. We got a race car at the racetrack. I go, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm down here helping my buddy Darian with this new A fuel car that this guy Gregg Lawrence from Salem bought. And he broke the rear end. And you got some gears, don't you? And I go, well, yeah, I guess. What gears are you looking for? He goes, we need a set of 290s for a 9-inch. I go, yeah, I've got a set of 290s in the box.
Wow.
And so showered, put him, grabbed the box and drove from Battleground, where I was living, down to Woodburn.
Right.
And that was it. I mean, my phone rings, it says Norm. I answer it because Norm and I go back to 78.
Oh, wow.
1978 with the MCY, the McGee Christenson Yardley car, which
damned.
was the Steve McGee Betts stereo car.
Yes.
Who is one of my hero mentors. Anyways, so we go back that far.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's where it started. And
Right.
and Darian was there, and I don't have
yep.
glasses, but he does the Steve Boggs where
Yes,
you put the glass
absolutely.
down. And
Yep.
Who are you?
Yes. He's looking down over the top of his glasses at you.
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
And Steve Boggs does that, and he goes, are you shitting me?
That's funny.
But anyway, so that was probably the first time we met. And then, I kind of was, I did some stuff with Hartley's on the A-Fuel car, and then went out when helped Joe, we got his, did the license stuff in 2001.
Right.
And I was a fly-in guy in 2001. And then you had Garrett on your car. That was, I think 2001 was probably your first full year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was.
And, and Garrett,
love
God bless Garrett.
Yes.
Donnie, as we like to call him now, Donnie Destructo. He's awesome. One of we're best friends. Garrett was your clutch guy and your car chief kind of guy. And then Garrett left. And I don't know, because I didn't know Garrett at all. I really didn't know Garrett. We had crossed paths a couple of times at the big show on the Top Fuel stuff, because he was helping Rhonda Hartman Smith. He was on the Fluke car. I don't know which car it was at that time, but I'm pretty sure it was with Rhonda. It could have been with Randy Parks and the Fluke car.
Fluke deal. Yep.
But anyways, we really kind of people, and some of them you really socialize with in the big show, because you're pit next to them a lot or whatever. But a lot of times it's just chit chat and staging lanes.
Right.
So you send me a calendar, the Gregg Racing calendar for 2022, and you write on that. That was a poster at that time. It wasn't a flip deal. It was a poster thing.
So you're saying 2002, not 22, right?
2002.
Yes.
21 years ago,
yes.
when I was 14.
Oh, yeah, sure you were.
Well, what were you, 30? So anyways, but no, you said, hey, here you're a guy. You remember me? Blah. You said that, something to the effect, hey, do you remember me? Need some help with the car. If you want to come on, give me a call. And I was just doing a fly-in deal. And at that time, Hartley's deal, we were only running maybe 8 races a year.
Yeah.
And all out of his pocketbook kind of a thing.
That's rough. That's really rough.
And so And what was really funny is he would usually wait till taxes were done to determine what his racing budget would be. So that's why we never started until like usually Topeka,
Oh,
which
wow.
was Memorial Day.
Yeah. Wow. That's
So,
crazy.
anyways, so I come down here, drive down in my white Cadillac. Remember my Cadillac?
Absolutely. That thing's legendary.
Yeah, the white Cadillac. And
What year was it?
61.
61 Caddy.
Coupe
Oh, my
de Ville.
God.
It was cool.
How many bodies do you think would fit in that damn trunk? You could fit a couple basketball teams in there.
Are we recording this because I put 18 in it one night?
Oh, my God.
and three. No, anyways. So I came down and kind of talked, and you guys, it was a shop day on a Saturday. You had you were like, we got to do shop days Wednesday night and Saturdays.
That's what we did.
And so it's like, I didn't have a lot going. My mom had just passed away. My mom died of cancer. God rest her soul. 2002, February of 2002. The family business that we worked in, the stuff Alpha Sprout business, I was done with it. I was on to my new world life. And so it kind of worked out. So I drive down on Wednesdays, some other weekdays. Remember, you said, listen, I ain't going to pay you. I'll give you a CFN card to put gas in your Cadillac. And I'd fill it up, the CFN pump over there.
Yep.
So I came down and did that. And the first race that you and I did, we did a test.
Yeah.
And if you remember, April 30th, 2002, and the reason why April 30th, 2002 at Woodburn, and you'll remember this, Robbie remembers it, because we celebrated my youngest daughter's birthday.
Oh, I'll be damned. Wow.
She was 9.
But that's part of the cool part of the sport is the family nature of it. It's really appealing to me, the relationships you develop over time. I really enjoy.
Absolutely. And you know what's really, I mean, a lot of time I see that in other, because now my job as a general manager at Portland International Raceway, we have NASCAR, we have IndyCar, we even have World Championship FIA Formula E racing.
I'll be damned.
As well as sports car racing, motorcycle road racing, all of that stuff, motocross that happens. It really doesn't. At the end of the day, we're all different genres of racing. We're all different disciplines. But when you're racing, you're a family.
Yeah.
And so even, I'm not kidding you, this year, Michael Andretti, he had a little private birthday party in his paddock for one of his crew guys.
That's cool.
It's a family thing, which is
I
really
love
cool.
that.
I love it.
Well, before we get too much deeper in the stories, we got to go back to the beginning here. So the deal that I made with this was that we were going to share a drink or two together, and so I asked you to bring your favorite booze. And as I tell everybody, I don't care if it's Dr. Pepper or White Zinfandel, but whatever it is, bring it. And that's your pit pass to get into the Cool Kids Club. Before you tell us what it is, I'm sure everybody, something I've just now created. I think that I had it for the first time with the third episode, which will air here in a couple days, with Randy Parker. But we're early in this, and that is that I had glasses made for the Cool Kids Club. And so my thought was that as a simple token of appreciation to commemorate your time here, after you're done drinking that, you can put it in your pocket, take it home with you, and throw it at the wall when you're mad at me or whatever, but it'll be yours. So,
well, nice. It'll go well with my purple duffel bag.
Wow.
Okay,
all right. So
going back.
Tell me, we gotta move. So tell me what you brought for your pit pass. What is that?
So, honestly, my drink of choice, what I really like and relax with, is corn squeezins.
Oh, I'll be damned.
Which is bourbon.
Yep.
Good old American Kentucky bourbon.
Yep.
Not blended whiskey. That's
yeah.
No. So, I was a Maker's Mark guy. I am a Maker's Mark guy. Still have Makers in the cabinet. Still drink it.
Yeah.
Knob Creek.
Yeah.
I'll do a Bullet. I will do a Crown Black because that's Pam's drink of choice.
Oh, wow. We'll get to the Pam stories later.
Yes, Pam stories later. But with my job, Kevin Savory, Kim Green, our Green Savory Promotions, they do our IndyCar event. They're the promoters for NASCAR, IndyCar, and working with them, they have a St. Petersburg IndyCar race. And if you watch on turn number 7, they have an activation area, which is Horse Soldier.
Oh, I'll be down.
And they're one of their sponsors of the event.
Okay.
And they have this really cool setup, nice spot for everybody to see. So, my IndyCar event in 2021, 2 summers ago.
Yep.
Kim and Kevin bring me a present, and they say, "Here you go. We know you like whiskey.
Yeah.
and we brought you this. And this is they originally they gave me Maker's Mark because of a private meeting that we had with a gentleman from NASCAR when we were starting the NASCAR deal before anybody knew about that. So they knew I liked whiskey. They knew I liked sipping whiskey. I don't. If you mix your whiskey, it's bad whiskey. So anything that needs to be mixed is usually bad.
There's a reason, huh?
Exactly. And I'm not going to really judge on people, but if you put ice in it, it's either because your body temperature is that of the sun or such. I drink it neat, room temperature,
All right.
no ice.
Then let's do it.
So
let's do it.
This was their sponsor. This has a great story in the fact that the gentleman that does this was, there was a movie out there called 12 Strong, spoke about the cavalry, some Rangers that rode into Afghanistan, into the hills in Afghanistan to try and find Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
7 days after 9/11, there was some intel that they knew he was in these mountains.
Right,
and
I remember that.
It's a great movie. Chris Hemsworth is the lead, the actor
he's awesome.
who survived. There was only one of them that survived in this,
That's so
and
sad.
the individual ultimately came back home, and he started this whiskey. This label, as I've been told, what he was able to get one of the I-beams from the Twin Towers.
Wow.
And they laser etched it to make it a press.
Wow.
And they press this
A
brass
die,
seal.
yeah. Oh my God.
So,
that's really cool.
in honor of good friends, old times, but honestly, to all of those that gave their life for this country.
Amen. God bless them. Thank you, sir.
America,
Amen.
you know it.
Absolutely. We love our military.
And that is
Get used
just
to that. What's wrong with that?
That is,
Hot damn. That's all right.
I mean, and the reason why everybody likes to wage war on us and jihad is because they can't create stuff like this.
Along with many other things.
Unless
they just steal them like damn Chinese.
Yeah.
But that's a different topic for another day. So we are extraordinarily pro-military. That picture of my car right there is, I wasn't going to bring this up, but has the flag. You can barely see it, but the flag up in the front, and then there was a car where the tow hook goes inside. Anyway, ever since 9/11, we put a flag in the front of that car that we leave on for the burnout and back up, and then Robbie removes it. But we've done that since 9/11, long time.
Yep.
And so it's really important to me that we have national pride. These people that don't like America, then go home, go wherever the hell you came from, and fix that up.
Yeah,
Good God.
I don't understand why I deal with this on a daily basis where people are so. I just think they're so unhappy because it's almost like they have a little bit of guilt that they've got it so good, that things are so good, so they need to be unhappy. And if they're unhappy, I'm going to make everybody else unhappy.
Yeah.
And it's like, please, there's better things in life to do than that.
Yeah, we got to move off of this, but while we're on the topic, the other thing that annoys the hell out of me is these pinheads will create rules based on their ideology that they don't have to live under.
Oh, yeah.
They want us to live under. You can't have an SUV while they charter a private jet to go across the globe to tell the story. Well, I have to do that because I got to go tell the story. Like, the hypocrisy is stunning.
Not for me, but for thee.
Right. That's it.
Absolutely. I
drives
totally
me
get
nuts.
it. So,
Anyway.
and we'll stop with the politics. I want to say one thing where we're talking about the alcohol. Goshen Beverage Supply. It's in Westchester, Goshen. It's literally a quarter of a mile from Bill and Jungle Pam's house, Bill Hodgson. I am myself, as well as my compadres, my teammates. We are the West Coast marketing branch for West Coast and Beverage.
That's awesome.
We roll into that place, and they know us. We're from the West Coast, and we come out there, and they go, "Hey, it's a tiki team." So
that's awesome.
Anyways, all right, let's talk race cars and fun.
Race cars and fun and good time. So you were kind enough to come help me out, and we spent a lot of hours. About 80 feet that way out in the race bay working on a hot rod, and then we went through some challenging times where you had to be with me. We went to Medford early on, Yakima. You remember these?
So Medford, that finished the season. This is where I do excel in my memory and history and everything.
You're good at that.
So tested April 30th. We do okay. We go to Mission.
Yes.
And do you remember I had a phrase that was taught to me by Bruce Cassidy?
What was it?
That was hilarious. We talked about doing something we didn't want to do in the worst sort of way. We don't want to do it. And I said, well, I'd rather, Bruce's phrase was,
Yes.
I'd rather.
I
Do
know
you want to say that?
Please go ahead. I know it's going. Go ahead.
I'd rather light my dick on fire and put it out with a ball peen hammer. So that really sets the phrase for how you don't want to do something.
Okay.
So we're in mission. And Robbie had walked in. Robbie, for those of you that have not met Robbie, Gregg's better half, she is a saint. She is an absolutely wonderful individual. God,
heart of gold.
Thank all of those wives that support us
Absolutely.
behind the scenes and sit there and go, these idiots. Anyways, Robbie would walk in and out of the shop, and she'd heard me say this a couple of times, and Gregg's laughing like he does now. So go ahead. Finish the story.
No, I want you to tell it, but I know where we're going. It's hilarious. She messed it up just a little bit. Go ahead.
So, Robbie, forgive me.
Yeah.
So we leaving breakfast. We do breakfast. We got out of the hotel, do breakfast, and then you and I and Robbie, the three of us, are in the crew cab driving to the track, and it's just the three of us with Nitro, because wherever we went, Nitro was there.
Nitro Dog, our first Dalmatian.
And we were talking, and it's like it's gonna rain. It's like, God, this is horrible. And Gregg and I are lamenting. What are we gonna do tune-up wise? The first day it was mine shaft. It was horrible. All that stuff. Typical May mission divisional.
Yeah, and why the hell they made that in Mission, Canada, which is north of Seattle?
Yeah.
Seattle rains like crazy. Mission gets even more. Why would you schedule that in May? I mean, it's nuts.
They talk about this atmospheric river, the new phrase now. Mission was not an atmospheric river. It was the atmospheric ocean. It was that bad at times.
Oh, my God.
We had a lot of, Mission is near and dear to my heart. Wally's. Anyways,
awesome track.
We're driving to the track, and we're just getting ready to cross the bridge into Mission over the Fraser River, and we're lamenting. And Robbie really is like wanting to chime in and be a part of the conversation. And she goes, "Yeah, it's pretty bad. You guys would probably rather beat your dick off and put it out." And you almost crashed the truck. We start laughing. And
close.
She's like, what did I say it wrong? And it's like,
yeah,
just a little bit.
Just change the meaning of Scotia. Oh my God, I had forgotten that. Man, you have an incredible memory.
It's fun. That was the time. Remember we want to talk about the parachute?
Sure, go ahead.
Anyways, we got the car to run good.
Yeah,
and then the second qualifier, Gregg does the burnout, and he's going to back up, and he steers it, and he had a button on the steering wheel that would set the chute off.
Yep.
And he inadvertently, that's why I don't like a lot of things on my steering wheel, because God knows I'd probably be putting the jack in the box out of the roof on the funny car or something, but it popped the chute out. And of course, you don't know that because all you're looking forward.
Yeah, you don't have a rear view mirror.
And the car.
Yep.
And Robbie's out there trying to stop, and I'm like, stop. So
Oh,
we were able to, we had to shut the car off, and we rolled it ahead and unwound it. And what was really cool, and I don't think you remember this.
Undoubtedly, I don't.
They put us at the back of the lane and let us make and run.
Oh, some bitch, yeah. Wow,
remember?
That's crazy.
And I think
I don't know if you get away with that today.
No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure we ran like a 46 or something like that. I think we qualified. The bad thing about it is it rained out, but we were qualified, and we couldn't go back.
That's right. Because you had to go all the way home, all the way back. Yeah.
Oh.
Those are such challenging times. I joke, but this is the God's honest truth. If you think I'm an idiot now, drag racing, what I don't know, you should have seen me then. The challenge is, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, but it's true and hilarious because it's so damn true.
Yeah.
But the people who know very little about whatever topic, computers or photography or drag racing, they're the ones that presume they know a lot because they have no idea how big the topic is. So they figure that what they know has got to represent 80% of everything there is to know.
Yeah.
And then we get further down the road and we go, oh, crap, there's a whole lot I don't know. And you start to pull yourself back and go, man, I don't have a clue. But you do know more than that other guy because it's all perspective. YouTube's got several videos on the Dunning-Kruger effect. We use those a lot around here because to work with the crew because most of the challenges that I have, finances are a bitch, parts are a bitch. I got stout competitors, but by far the most difficult part's crew and trying to prevent them from making mistakes that cost you a gazillion damn dollars. It's just really hard to try to. It's like the whack-a-mole game, trying to keep everything together.
And that's really when we talked about the whole family thing.
Yes.
When we we all there's the thing called dysfunctional family, and we all, whether you have the crazy uncle, which is me, my nephew and niece call me Uncle Buck. I'm fine with that. It's all good. But at the end of the day, as a former driver,
14 years,
you need to have complete confidence in what's.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't do from where you're sitting. You can't. I mean, all you can do is shut the car off.
Yep.
And
It's a
and
big
so
deal.
there is a level of trust, and talking to friends that have served in the military, as we talk about that, they say it is no different than your buddy that would be with you in the foxhole
Right. I get
or
it.
in the tank.
I get
That person has your life in their hand, and ultimately so goes it within, especially at our level of racing, not to diminish any other level of racing, but when we start traveling, 1,000 foot in 300 miles and 340 miles an hour, and what those cars do, or what our cars do, where you're going 0 to 60 foot in sub-second, sub 1 second.
So our car goes 0 to 80 miles an hour in 1 second,
Yep.
and then half track, the 8th mile increment, 225 at 3.5 seconds.
Yeah.
And then we finish out with cars running well, low fives at over 270.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts.
But I'm smarter than you on the drag racing side of things.
Yes, of course.
Because I spend a second more on the drag strip, so I have more knowledge.
There you go. Clink.
Clink.
Screw the haters.
Here's looking up your old address.
God blesses everyone. That was good.
Yes.
Oh, crap. I got to tell a story here. Damn it. I bet I forgot. I was at Woodburn this past weekend helping out a dear friend. I did wasn't a podcast then, but I just made a video about Mike Myers. We were up at Keith McCurdy's father's, I guess you call it a memorial service. It was at the bar, and they had a bunch of hot rods
Was it
there.
a wake? More like a wake?
I don't know what the hell you call it, but it was awesome. There's a lot of good people there, and I ran into Mike, and I'd been hearing this story about his car for a couple of years. Every time I'd see him, he'd show me a picture of the progress. Right. So he had this front engine dragster that he'd driven in the early '70s, and he sold it, and then decades later, somehow he's able to locate the car, and he told me this, so I feel fair to say he's 75 now, and he's had arm surgeries, shoulder surgeries, and just not like all of us, not the same as we were when we were kids. Yeah. But he had this car rebuilt, but he didn't have any way to get it to the track and anything to service it with, so we left our stuff there to help him out. But it was just so dang cool to be able to do that stuff and help somebody else out. It was just awesome.
When we start looking at some of the pictures and some of the cars I've been involved with, and on the restoration side predominantly with what we did at the museum, other than the jungle car, probably the other car that I'm the most proud of being involved with, and Garrett was involved with it as well, was the restoration of the Gaines Markley Rob Bruin's 1979 Top Fuel World Championship car.
Oh, wow.
And what was really cool about that is I found out about that car from a guy, Butch, Chris Horn is his name, but it went by Butch. He was a crew guy in 1979. He knew where he had bought the car. He had ended up buying the cylinder block. And we know that it was the cylinder block because in 1979, Rob Bruins is the only Winston or whatever world champion. It was in 1979. It was Winston, but he is the only Top Fuel world champion to win his world championship without winning a national event in that season.
Oh, that'd be hard to do.
But
wow,
what would be even harder to do, and what they did, because back then the point structure was you had divisional races that you would race in the division,
in Top Fuel,
Nitro Funny Car and Top Fuel Dragster
race divisionally. It's crazy.
That was the last year that they did it. In 1980, they went to just national events.
Okay.
Rob Bruins not only won Division 6 championship at Division 5.
Wow, that's nuts.
He was deadly in the divisional level,
dominant,
and he had four runners up with the car in national events. Stuff like input shaft braking, stuff like rear ends braking. He had a Dana 60 rear end in it.
There's my input shaft that I shattered up in Seattle.
Yeah,
this stuff is made out of unobtainium. It's heavy as hell, but
Mangaloy.
It's nuts.
Yeah,
but I broke it like it was glass.
So anyways, Rob, we got the car from Chris with the block because there was a big story written about it in National Dragster that in 1979 to win the championship, and every single big show person right now would just die. They only burned 7 pistons the entire season out of 400 114 laps.
Oh, good Lord. That's
They-
crazy.
Robin Gaines had Rob Bruins and Gaines Markley had a tune-up on that car that was just spot on because they didn't have the budget, but Gaines Markley was brilliant.
Did they have a computer on the car?
Huh?
Was there a computer on the car?
First computer showed up, I want to say 1980. It was called Keko.
I don't remember that,
anyways.
but my point was, I'm sure there's no computer on the
No,
car.
the computer was looking at the plugs, looking at the bearings,
And listen to your driver if he was worth a damn to tell you what happened.
and Rob was a brilliant driver. He was a very so highly underrated driver. He was supposed to end up. He was going to replace Jody Smart. No, Cowboy.
You're the encyclopedia, man.
Yeah, and I just drew a blank on him.
That's all right.
He drove the Blue Max car. Just a character. He was
Raymond
replacing,
Beadle.
huh?
Raymond
No,
Beadle drove the
not
Blue
Raymond
Max.
Beadle. This was before Raymond Beadle. It was when Harry Schmidt owned the Blue Max.
Well, hell, I
in
don't
the
know what
early
to tell
'70s.
Okay.
Anyways, top fuel guy drove for Candies and Hughes. They had brought Rob in to replace him because Gaines said, "You need a driver. This is your guy. I don't have the budget." Paul Candies and Leonard Hughes had a budget. Candies and Hughes were epic in the time.
They were. That's right.
And Richard Tharp.
Oh, okay.
King Richard Tharp.
I've heard the name, but I don't
And
know it all.
what they found out is that Rob was getting married. And Leonard Hughes says, "I don't want a married guy in my car because I don't want to kill a wife's husband."
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
And
That's crazy.
And
makes
so
sense.
Rob stepped out, completely stepped away from it. He drove a sprint car for 1 year. But he had a wife, raised 2 twin daughters, beautiful kids. He worked at Bremerton as a test. He did testing in the nuclear subs.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
stuff
cool.
like that. Very smart individual. But getting to the story, sorry, I do get sidetracked sometimes. We restored the car and we debuted the car. We did a little picture of it we did a little video for the museum at Woodburn. It was a lot of fun. But the first real public unveiling was at the national event in Seattle in 2015.
Oh, wow.
Drug the car up there. Now, Dennis Taylor, who is of local legend, he's a local guy, does all of my safety equipment, great guy.
Yep.
Dennis Taylor knew Rob from back in the 70s because Dennis Taylor was this bushy-headed punk kid, crew guy, that worked on the Green Elephant
Wow.
for Jim Green with Rob Bruins.
Oh, my God.
And then Dennis drove a top fuel car for Brasket and Dennis Brasket. Anyways, so I debuted the car up there. The other crew guy that was with the car was Terry Morrow. Terry Morrow is a Northwest kid, worked at Gaines's shop. He ended up going to work for Walt Austin, left Austin's to go to work for Alan Johnson, and he still works for AGP, Alan Johnson Performance. He does a lot of their stuff. Terry Morrow is a dear friend, good guy. So Terry was this mop head of a kid back then. Mm-hmm. So we debuted the car. Terry always would come up to Seattle because his family still lives up there, and he would go see family. And I have Robbie in the car, Terry and Dennis standing there. It's just the 3 of them, myself and Gwen, and we fire the car. Mm-hmm. And this car, mind you, it uses a starter that's outside of the roll cage because the motor's so close to the roll cage, and
Lord.
it has a chain that runs
the offset. I had one of those
old offset starters.
I had one, yeah.
And you have to flip this little lever to get it to keep bucking off and all. It's wild, but it worked. It worked great, and that thing, everybody said that was probably one of the meanest sounding 426s they ever heard.
That's cool.
I had the original flat tappet cam. We were able to get 2 camshafts.
Wait, back in the day they ran flat tappet cams?
Yeah, it was a flat tappet cam.
I'll be damned.
That was all it was, with
That's
chilled
crazy.
iron lifters and everything. Had all of that
Crazy.
stuff. Chris Horn, great guy, found a lot of this stuff, and a lot of it he got from Gaines. Gaines kept a lot of the parts and pieces around. The block went with the car to the other guy, and we knew it was the block because it was block number 468, which was written about in National Dragster. So we knew we had the original block, had the original rear end, had the original, all of it was pretty much original. Brad Hatton, Garrett Bateman did a lot of fabric, putting it back. It was Ron Smith's very first top fuel car.
Oh, wow.
Seattle Ron Smith.
Yeah.
He's
a nice old guy.
They kept the roll cage off of the car. It always went with the car. And Brad Hadman was the guy that welded the car at Al Swindoll's shop in 1978.
Oh, wow. That's
And
crazy.
so Brad Hadman has the shop down in Albany. Brad went over to Garrick's place, and Brad welded that original cage back on.
I'll be damned.
So we're tying all of this together, and this is what's so cool, and it just gives me, I mean, these cars are a soul. They've got a soul.
Yeah,
Whether the people look at us kind of sideways, oh, you're kind of weird, but it really does, because then when you put these three guys together, and as soon as you pull the wires, and when we say pull the wires, that means it basically starts, because we ground the coil out. Spin it over, throw some fuel in it, pull the wires, and it starts popping.
It's an unbelievably almost spiritual experience. It's
well,
crazy.
I had Dennis Taylor and Terry Morrow and Rob Bruins crying like third-grade school kids. And it was not from the nitro.
It wasn't from the nitro. Wow.
It wasn't from the nitro.
Crazy.
So we then do the push on Sunday in front of the whole crowd.
Yeah.
At the top end, we push down. Now, these cars didn't push, so I started him, and he drove the car down. This is the first time Rob Bruins has been in that car, and Rob Bruins and Rick Mears were the two people that worked with Bill Simpson to develop the Bandit helmet.
Oh, I'll be damned. I had one of those.
Because Rob Bruins,
there.
Rob Bruins was he was so connected, and he was a superstar at that period. Him and Kelly Brown, and they gave Kelly Brown was a Bell guy, so they gave Rob this Simpson Bandit. He still has that Bandit.
Wow, that's cool.
And it's cool. You see him. He puts his hand on the wheel with the championship ring, ring, and he slides his glove over it, and he puts that old helmet from 1979 back on his head. But the best thing, I'm going to try not to cry, but I put him in the car, and he just sits there and he goes like this, and I go, "You okay?" He goes, "I'm home."
That's cool. That's awesome. That's powerful.
It is.
Very powerful. Thank you for the story.
Yep.
You are an unbelievable encyclopedia for this crap. I got 2 points I want to make. Number one, I can remember when you were first, as I recall, my memory is a fraction of what yours is, so you'll correct me, but putting together cars for the museum that you worked at. It was something about putting old cars together, and I had an old, I think, Italy gear drive, I think is what it was, some old gear drive that you ended up with. I brought up to you.
Well, it was a Donovan gear drive.
Yeah. Donovan.
And that Donovan gear drive is on the top fuel car. That's on the Robbie Bruins car.
But I didn't remember that. But I can remember taking that up to you and all these cars, and you know all the history, every piece, when it came out, who made it. Oh my God, I don't remember what I had for breakfast, and you remember all this crap. So that's one point, is you putting those old cars together did a remarkable job. Second point, talking to you folks, our friends here, all you in the Cool Kids Club, I told you all that I wanted this to be authentic. This is authentic. So I started talking about going to Woodburn last weekend to help Mike Myers, and then completely got sidetracked what the hell the point was. Oh, my God, this is authenticity. We won't edit this out. The reason I told you that story was to tell you this story, that that Todd Miller was there.
Oh, yeah, Todd Miller.
With his bitchin' altered.
Yeah.
That thing hauls ass. Right now, he told me it's running like 7 O's.
265 cubic inch engine, whatever it is. It's stupid.
Yeah, it's nuts. Anyway, he's going to run comp next year.
Yeah.
Now, the point of all that is we're pitted across from him, and he made it his mission. He came over and talked to me, and he said, "Hey, I was listening to your podcast, one with Garrett, I think it was, he listened to, and he said, every time you guys took a drink, I took a drink, and he said, man, it was a great time." I said, damn, that's a brilliant idea. Why did I think of that? So it's new policy. If you guys want to be part of the Cool Kids Club, find your favorite booze, and as long as you're not driving down the road right now. If you're a truck driver, don't do this part. You have a pass. But if you're in your shop working, then grab your favorite booze, and when we have a drink, please do. Then you'll enjoy this way better like we do.
Now, if you're in your shop working, do not use power tools. Remember, safety at all times.
Oh, my God. All right, so it's my turn now.
Yes.
I'm going to bring a picture and let you talk so I can get my booze going. So for today, hang on.
This is all PR, past Ron.
Yeah, by a long shot. Those are just my screensavers.
I know.
Oh, my God. It's on there. It won't be. All right. So I have shared this vodka. This is my deal. I like this Ciroc vodka.
Sure.
Anyway, so we typically, Robbie and I would make vodka tonics, and they're awesome. But with you liking stuff neat. I was telling you before we started that this vodka, I drink neat. I enjoy it. So that's the way I'm going to pour it for us. But
that's fine.
I got to get the bourbon out of our glasses, and we'll reboot. So for now, I want you, if you would be so kind. So these are pictures we put of some of Ron's history together to share with you all. So we've numbered them so we can start in order, and here we go. So I didn't know about this car, but that is, you have to explain it, but that's a damn turbocharged fuel funny car, right?
No, it's alcohol.
Alcohol funny car.
Alcohol,
All right.
alcohol and nitrous oxide.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I just so
Whose idea was that?
Yeah, well.
Oh my God.
Anyways,
That's hilarious.
so this goes. So I don't have any early childhood stuff. I was a track brat. You know, I met the Livingstons shortly. Jay and I have known each other since '74, roughly '75. Went to Woodburn a few times with Ernie Hall.
Oh wow!
Ernie Hall was his wife Carly ran the guest book at my mom and dad's wedding, and they were at my christening. You know, from Forest Grove.
No kidding.
They've
Wow.
known the family from the
Your
Forest Grove
history
Baptist.
is stunning.
So, anyways, I've been around. This is at Portland International Raceway. This is 32 Funny Cars, 1981.
Wow.
So
That's the good old days when you could run real cars there.
yeah. That image is my buddy Ronnie Orr sitting on the tailgate of the tow vehicle.
Yeah.
I am in the car towing up. As some of you, if you go, and a few events, they do this now still. This was a Bill Donor thing. Bill Donor was the great promoter of international raceways. Oh, I owe you a pit pass. Not this kind of pit pass, but a real live international raceways pit pass.
You have those?
I have a full roll of them.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that goes back. I mean,
I gave it to Darian. I go, Darian, does this look familiar? He goes, holy crap, where did
Yeah.
you find this kid?
When did they
Wait
quit
a second.
that?
Wait a second.
Yeah,
Where did you
there you
find
go.
this kid? So anyways,
that's awesome.
my first race at Portland International in 1968. I grew up around drag racing. My dad did fiberglass work for Joe Coletti Chrysler Plymouth out of Hillsboro. Joe Coletti was a I think 2-3 year Carcraft All-Star and Stock Eliminator. His son Mark won the 1969 Winter Nationals with Riddler 4, the youngest winner at 17 years of age at a national event. 68 Barracuda and Stock Eliminator.
Seriously, I didn't
Yeah.
know that was legal. Wow, that's crazy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
Mark, I was the kid. Coletti's at Hillsboro, that place was like the nebulous for all of the great things in the fact that it had Twig Ziegler as a transmission guy. It had
wow.
Larry Kulch as an engine assembler. It had Robin Withcomb as a tuner. It had all of these greats that were working out of this place, along with an incredibly psychotic, God rest his soul, talented individual in Phil Schaefer. Phil
wow.
Schaefer, Filthy Phil as he was known, was the painter. And he did these exotic paint jobs, which completely formed my memory and my mindset of what these cars really should have been, which we have completely lost.
And now we have vinyl wraps.
Yeah, vinyl's for kitchen floors.
And they-
Remember that.
they suck.
Vinyl is for kitchen floors.
I agree. So the idea that you're describing, it's so funny because I don't remember ever talking to you about this, but what I grew up with in the late 60s, early 70s at Balboa, the non-existent Balboa drag strip in Eugene, about 60 miles south of where we're at in Salem, Oregon right now. We at the time lived in Roseburg and drove the car up to run at Balboa, so that's what I knew. But I remember so distinctly how beautiful these top fuel cars were if they were full-bodied and painted well.
Correct.
It just blew my mind how gorgeous these things were. So you had all the models and crap you put together as a kid. But that stuck in my mind how gorgeous those cars were. They paid a lot of attention to that it seems like everything's disposable now. So it's new sponsor, new day, tear it off, put a new one on.
So you have...
It's not as good as it used to be.
No, yeah, well, absolutely. But you have within your DNA, and what you just said is what your father instilled in you, because your dad, and I remember him, great guy, had a dragster.
Absolutely.
You've always been a dragster guy, other than that one soiree where you went into a door car. That was a period we just, Greg kind of went...
It's where I learned to drive.
Yes.
'Cause that car went everywhere but straight.
anyways...
Yes, go ahead.
So, no, that period of time, I'm a funny car guy because
Sure.
Well, we started out with stock eliminators and super stock. And in my opinion, the greatest super stock car of all time is a 68 Barracuda BO29
Wow.
Hemi car. Those are the
Wow.
greatest. That is the only car that is given its own class, whether it's the Hemi Darts or the Hemi Barracudas.
Right.
Check it. It's at U.S. Nationals Hemi Challenge.
Wow.
Anyways, I show up at Coletti's place. I got a ride with Ronnie Sox in 1969. They came out to the Sox and Martin Super Clinic, and they would have this little test area at the dealership. And Ed McCullough, who was born and raised in Fresno, a lot of people kind of think he was from up here. Think, oh, he's
That's what I thought.
Forest Grove guy. No. Born and raised in Fresno, moved up in high school to Forest Grove, and spent his formative years, the '60s and early '70s, in Forest Grove. And then when he really hit it big, and when he left Art Whipple, and really he and Art Whipple started the Revolution thing, but then they left that, and it was just Ed McCullough. He went back down to Hemet, California, which is down south by San Diego.
Your memory of this stuff is
so. Anyways, all I remember is like, okay, it's another day. We're going to Coletti's, and Dad says, "Yeah, there's a new car that showed up. We got to go check it out." And Coletti had this little 3-bay or 4-bay shop that was the high performance shop adjacent, right across in the parking lot of the dealership. And we go rolling up there, and here's this station wagon with a little enclosed trailer behind it, and they just rolled out, and it was the Whipple and McCullough funny car.
I'll be damned. That's
and
cool.
it's like, holy shit, this is cool.
It is cool. That's cool.
I mean, I've worked on dragsters. I worked on your car. I worked on Top Fuel cars. I have a T-shirt. Everybody laughs. It's my famous T-shirt. Dragsters suck.
I remember that.
But I'm a funny car guy through and through.
Yeah.
Because I saw that funny car, and it was like, that's the coolest thing. It was the Duster. That Duster got on a trip to Puyallup. Ed McCullough won the U.S. Nationals with that car. Him and Art Whipple. The Whipple McCullough Duster.
I'll be damned.
He's towing to Puyallup the year after that. They're getting ready to go up there. And the trailer catches fire. Burns the trailer. If you can go back, search Whipple McCullough trailer fire, you'll see the pictures of it. Burns the front of the funny car.
How sad.
So that kind of stops them from backing up the U.S. Nationals win.
Oh, wow, right.
What ends up happening is Twig Ziegler ends up buying that. Twig had a 33 Willis that he had bought, had put an injected nitro 426 Hemi in it, ran it. Cool car. Cool car. And he ends up buying this funny car from Ed because Ed was involved with Coletti's place. And that became Ziegler's first car. Ziegler's house was maybe a half a mile from my grandparents in Hillsboro. And so it was Stingray Saturday. Every morning I'd take a bike and go down there.
I had one of those too with a big slick. And
yeah.
Yeah.
And the sissy bar. That was,
I had that.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
And then and after seeing Funny Car Summer, I had to have a parachute. Because Mike Dunn had that parachute on his. Anyways, so I would, and remember, this is 1972 when it was a much different world.
Oh, God, yes.
And my grandparents, I'd wake up, I'd have a waffle with Grandma and Grandpa, and I'd say, love you, boom, I'm gone.
Right.
And I would get on the Stingray and I'd head to Twigs. Wow. And that thing would be sitting out in his driveway. He had a ramp truck kind of thing it was an enclosed box. And I can remember this clear as day. One Saturday, I'm just standing there, and I'm like, I'm over him. I'm looking at it. It's like, oh, this is cool. This is cool.
Yeah.
Twig let me sit in it. That's when the needle broke off in my arm.
It is. It's the incurable disease.
Oh, God.
Horrible addiction.
There is no 12-step process for it.
I don't think so. I don't know this for sure, but I've told people I think you could have a hell of a cocaine habit for what it's cost us to do this. It's nuts.
Anyways, Twig, at that moment, Twig got really pissed, and he said, damn it, Ronnie, pick up a rag and clean something or get out of here. And that was the first time I worked on a nitro funny car.
I'll be damned.
7 years old.
To me, it's crazy how our lives intersected before we knew each other. So you were probably Balboa when I was. I distinctly remember, and I've shared this story about, I can't remember who it was, but there was a fuel funny car guy, and I was hanging around a lot, and he let me help him mix his fuel. And that did it for me. Like, this is nitro, and I'm for a fuel funny car. It was incredible.
Yeah,
I distinctly remember Kenny Goodell and Twig Ziegler running their cars at Balboa, and saw them run there. And there's a Top Fuel Dragster guy. The car was gorgeous, and I can't remember his name, but the cars that were there were incredible. They had the jet engine dragsters of that era, very different than they are now.
Yeah.
Looked like a pointed dart deal.
Yeah, Green Mamba and Doug Rose and the Green Mamba.
Right.
Yeah.
So they had a couple of those there at Balboa, and you had to know the layout, but the staging lanes were kind of a 90 to the track.
Yep.
And as you turned into the racetrack, then behind that area where you'd start your car and go for it to do the burnout was a small grassy area. Then you went to the road, and then across the road was another field. When they ran those jet cars, they caught the grass on fire behind that, jumped the road, and caught the grass on fire on the other side of the road. So I don't know how they got away with that crap then.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody could. It's a public road, for God's sake.
They didn't care. It was, like I said, it was a different time. You know, fire burnouts, all of that stuff.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
I mean, I caught I will never forget. 5 years old, I saw on Wide World of Sports, Tommy Ivo did a fire burnout. You know, Don Garlitz was doing it. It was the Dragster guys kind of doing it, and then Jungle with the funny car, which is a whole nother story. But I had this great idea as a 6-year-old kid. We got to do fire burnout. My brother was just, there was a kid that we lived in an apartment complex in Beaverton, and my brother was very little, and I was supposed to be watching him, but me and my buddy Darren Kaufman, we wanted to go do fire burnouts. And so we found a gas can, put a little puddle of gasoline, and we would light it, and it would just sit there and burn. And this one kid that was learning to ride the bicycle had training wheels, and you could lean a training wheel, and you could pedal really fast like a puddle and throw it. And so I do that, and I'm trying to make this fire burn out. And the next thing I know, oh, crap, my pant leg's on fire. Oh, crap, oh, crap, oh, crap. And I'm trying to put it out. Oh, my God. I mean,
Crazy.
It's a lot of those things. That's why my mother on my 21st birthday looked at me and she said, Ronnie, you are living proof that prayer works.
That's funny. I was sharing this with Garrett when we did his podcast here a few weeks ago. One of the things that it just intrigued me was, for lack of a better word, the pageantry that we had back then. Because I distinctly remember those Top Fuel cars. They were still push cars.
Yep.
But they would put them in the opposite lane. No, in the lane they're going to run in, they'd push them all the way down, crisscross, turn around, and then push them back. And on the way back is when they light them through the push car. Now they're lit going the wrong direction, and they got to turn around to the end of the staging lanes. What a... And you're thinking about that now, what a pain in the ass.
Well, you know...
but it worked, and the pageantry was awesome. People loved that.
That was... I mean, it was so... And they took that, what you call pageantry, which I think is a very apropos word. It's very correct. You know, Lion's Drag Strip was one of the few that had a fire... There were few that had what they called fire-up roads, where the guys would all be down at the other end, and they would push down. You know, but it was a whole... I mean, it was like... organized ballet, because there would be a crew guy. The cars, they didn't have reversers. Remember, reversers were not mandatory in NHRA until 1973, thanks to Don Garlitz, which was a huge fight with Wally Parks. Pretty sure on 1973. I could be wrong on that. Might be 72. Anyways, so these guys, the cars would start, and they would go to the wall, and then they'd have to back them up, and then they'd push them up. It was a whole deal. And then, you know, the burnout, they didn't do much. They would do a little bit of a burnout, but it was more what Steve Gibb calls chirpies, where they would throw some glue down, they'd burp, chirp it out, burp, 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 like that. Well, in the 70s, and funny cars, dragster guys are the dragsters are the kings of the sport. I mean, Mike Salinas, congratulations, 300 mile an hour.
God bless him. That's incredible.
New record. Anyways,
can I sidebar that real quick? Don't lose your train of thought. So I thought it was incredible because all of us who follow the sport, and you look at the time, Brittany held, 8 or 9 of the top 10 speed records. So who was the money on first to go 300 to the 8th, right?
Yeah.
So I'll bet you that the JFR, and I love those guys. I got a lot of John stories. They've been good to me. Yeah, and Grubby's brilliant.
Grubnick.
But the point is that everybody expected them to get that first, just like they expected for John to get the first 300
miles. Which Epler sniped everybody. Yeah.
And they go, who the hell's Jim Epler, right?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
But here's the thing. This is where people, and this is where only racers who we really look at, you know, we get the incrementals, we get the sheets, you know, you get to run a sheet of every car that's running, all their increments. You start looking, and you start, you know, and... You know, I'm this weird guy that has all this memory, kind of like that kid you knew in grade school that remembered the box score from the 1914 Yankees, the Savant. Yes, yeah.
So you're basically Rain Man.
I'm Rain Man. Charlie Babbitt. Anyways,
I'm an excellent driver.
If you look back, and my buddy Rob Flynn, who is the tuner on that car. And Rob,
do you know Rob? I didn't know
Rob
that.
worked with us on Hartley's car.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Rob is, I mean, he's an awesome guy, salt of the earth, gentle giant, super great guy. Rob is a very aggressive early guy, and that comes from Kalitas, because Rob used to work on Kalitas' team.
Oh, wow.
He used to work for Conrad.
I don't know how they do it and not get in trouble. You can only attain so much wheel speed before it takes tire off.
Well,
with the kind of power they have.
It's as you know, what's the most important thing? Drive shaft.
Yeah, the drive shaft speed. You got to control the drive shaft speed, which is a function of the clutch.
And Rob, I guarantee you, they've got that car is literally 5 RPM from kicking the tire off.
And that I've talked to some people who've speaking in my ear about what to do. Good people, super awesome. Well, someday I'll tell you the story. But that was exactly what I was told to do. Put up your drive shaft target, the best run you've ever made. Mm-hmm. Put that up and line the drive shaft up with that. And he says if the thing isn't trying to take the tire off at every 1/10 of a second, you're not aggressive enough.
Yeah.
Damn, that's brilliant.
Yeah, but and that's and people think, oh, it's just a dumb drag racer guys. They're done. They're done. It's literally you got a better chance of driving a car with no wheels down an ice road.
Yes.
It's so challenging. But Rob has always been very aggressive early, and if you go back and if you look at all of Salinas' stuff from last year and this year, the early numbers are hot. Yeah. I mean, he is hard hot on that car. And as Grubnick as well, because both of those came from Conrad, and Connie Kalita knows one thing: all of it, all of it.
And a long time.
I mean, I've had the chance to sit and meet with Connie and visit with him. He kind of poked in on Hartley's car a little bit and gave some advice, and Connie gave me run. I'm like, one of the best Conradisms of all time, and this involves Don Jackson because Don was on the Hartley car.
Time out. Don Jackson, these people may not know this. Don Jackson had a company that manufactured the device on the car called a BDK. I've always said it stood for Bob, Dick, and Carl, but I don't really know. I don't know what it stood for. And I don't think he invented it. I think he took over.
He
anyway,
was involved in that.
But he perfected this deal, and it's just a variable fuel dump. So
it's a pressure regulator.
It is. So the fuel that goes to the motor is in a Y. This goes to the motor, and this goes back to the tank, but it has to go through that return valve. So you increase the pressure on it to return less to the tank, and decrease the pressure to return more to the tank. And there's a lot of crap in that, but that's the way it works. So this is a really critical component of a nitro car. In the top fuel, they've got all valves now that new and improved for them. But in our world, for the A fuel injected cars, we all run BDKs. But when I bought my car, the BDK that was on it was too small as we started increasing the fuel volume. All the power, not some, all the power in a nitro car is in the fuel tank. Yeah. That's where the power is.
On an injected car.
So so the only way to make it go faster is to burn more fuel.
Yeah.
But putting more in doesn't mean you're going to burn it. It means you can put cylinders out. So you got to figure out how the hell to burn it.
And that's where we're kind of getting off on side.
And be legal doing it, by the way.
Yeah. We all run 44 amp mags. So, anyways, it's really weird. And injected nitromethane engines, only injected nitromethane engines, completely defy all physics.
It makes no sense.
In internal combustions when they have a stoichiometric average of roughly 3-to-1.
It's nuts.
When it should be 14. Yeah,
it's nuts.
Because it's a monopropellant, it carries its own oxygen.
So,
anyways, we're sitting in the staging lanes. It's Topeka, Heartland Park Nationals, 2003. Doug is out of the field. He hasn't qualified. This is Q4.
Oh, wow. That's a horrible place to be.
He's number 18. They've been struggling with it.
Yeah.
And so when you're not qualified, you get the first runs. They put the non-qualified cars at the front.
Yeah.
Kind of like, throwing the lions to the Christians to the lion's den,
Absolutely.
so to speak. Conrad goes up there on a single, and Doug goes straight to number 1.
Oh,
literally
awesome.
Just goes down, runs
awesome.
a 5:59 or 4:59, something pretty stout at the time.
That's because that's quarter mile still.
Yeah, and this is 2003, so we're talking 20 years ago.
Right.
Connie was full of he was Connie, all Connie. Conrad, as they call him. He comes walking back, and everybody's kind of patting him on the back. And the deal at Topeka is you had golf carts and mini bikes. They were parked at least
everybody rides
300 foot from the starting line. You had to walk through underneath the tower and down to your cart.
Yeah.
And we're sitting back in the lanes. We were qualified at the Hartley cart like 9, I think is what it was. So we were a few pairs back. And Don Jackson, who was with the team we talked about, used to work on Kalita stuff. And Connie comes walking back, and Don goes, nice run, Conrad. And Connie turns around and looks at him. Nice run. I'm amazed the piece of shit started. That is an awesome Connie Kalita line.
Yeah,
I hope Conrad, please.
The humility is awesome.
It was just, I mean, and he was literally, he would help anybody if they needed help.
Yeah, that's awesome.
People do not understand what Conrad Kalita does without any light put on him.
Yeah,
Doug Kerhulis's crash at Columbus, Ohio, when he went through the end of the catch net, caught his head, had a brain injury. Connie sent one of his planes to California to pick Doug's wife up to fly her to be with him.
Oh my God!
You know, that's the kind of
cost him to do that.
It didn't matter to Connie.
God.
It was This is the family thing we talk about.
It's hard to overstate the depth of that and the value of that.
Yes.
When you're in that particular Cool Kids Club,
Right.
That you help each other out. I always talk that I'm going to do my best to bust your ass up there and turn on my wind light. But the moment I cross that finish line, if I'm done, you kick my ass, I'll take parts off my car to put on your car to help you.
Yeah.
It's what we do.
Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I think, especially, and honestly, you can go back to sportsman bracket racers. You can go back to cars that are running 14, 15, 18, 20 seconds in the quarter mile. All you want to do is make sure your buddy does the best that they can do with their car, male or female.
Yeah.
And it at that point in time, it becomes a challenge. I'm going to help this guy to try and do better than they did before.
Yeah.
That's why it's all about.
It's awesome. I love it.
It is.
Try your vodka. See if you want to keep going on that, or we'll switch back to yours.
I'm going to have to call Gwen to pick me up. I can't drive.
Fortunately, you live close.
Yes.
All right. So
let's go. So that's the funny car. So I go through the 70s. I ride with Twig. I went to Balboa with Twig in the ramp truck. 1977, 78, my dad decides, because he realizes, my dad and I, if you watched Orange County Choppers back in the 90s or whatever, that was my dad and I. We had that kind of a relationship. It was not a great relationship.
Super healthy.
And, to his dying day, he never said he loved me. I don't care. I get it. That's fine.
I love you, Ron. It's okay.
I love you too, Greg. Seth, I love you.
That makes it all.
Seth, for the post-production work,
yeah,
we love you. Anyways, but he knew that all I thought about was drag racing. I was just consumed with this drag racing stuff and cars. And so we had a mutual friend that we knew, Dave Snyder, who I got my very first ride in Dave Snyder's 56 T-Bird, a real race car, pro gas car, foot brake, line lock, none of the electronics, back when it was really cool.
But you actually had to drive them.
You really had to drive them.
Okay. Sidebar, have you seen Tim McCamus's video?
Oh, which one?
He wants to sell you a kit to drive your Pro Mod, because that's kind of his.
Oh, the tennis shoes and the hat and
the big bag of Cheetos.
Yep.
And the 64-ounce drink.
Yep.
And you can just sit home, because now you've got all these computers that do all these functions in the car.
Absolutely.
That are supposed to be the damn driver. Then why the hell do we need you?
Exactly.
We can do this without you. What's the point?
Yeah, 2 steps. You name it. I've got a T-shirt. I've talked to Sean Bellimer. We got to make it. I got to do this. And for any of you watching, if I see it, I'm copywriting it right now, and it's going to be a black shirt with a red button, kind of like your easy button you used to have on your desk.
Yeah, I did.
It's going to be a button, and it's just going to say, "Buttons are for life alert," and we're going to give them to all of the funny car and dragster guys. You know what I'm talking about?
That's awesome.
So, anyways, so my dad, we're looking at cars to get. And my very first injected nitro car that I ever saw and really got up close and touched was Whitey Jensen's Straight Shot, which was a Kenny Goodell top fuel Woody Gilmore car. Had a 392, injected on nitro, raced in comp eliminator, had a Lenco 2-speed in it. It ran in the 7s. Back then it was pretty stout. And we had the it was gorgeous. It was, because Kenny Goodell, people, whatever you want to say about Kenny Goodell, his stuff was impeccable. It was what I call drag boat pretty. If you guys know what a drag boat looked like, you know what I'm talking about. Gorgeous stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
Kenny sold the front engine car to Whitey Jensen. He put a 392 in it, ran it as a injected nitro car in comp eliminator.
Wow.
And Dad wanted to do it. Turbochargers were still out there. Ohio George did it with his. Enriquez and Adams did it with their comp eliminator car. Malacotes had it with their gasser and stuff like that.
Can't believe the names you can remember.
So the turbo thing was starting to ramp up. Gail Banks was just starting to do aftermarket kits in the late 70s. Ray J was the turbo. A lot of this stuff was happening. And my dad my dad, God rest his soul, was a paper drag racer. He loved to build race cars on paper.
Oh, my word.
And he would drive. I mean, he was a draftsman, but he would come up with these ideas. And we're friends with Dave Snyder. And Dave says, "Well, let's get together and let's do this thing, and let's find something to put the kid in it, or I can drive it." So we go and look at Whitey Jensen's car. I immediately fell in love with it. It's the only dragster I've ever loved.
Oh, wow.
Woody Gilmore car. Woody Gilmore with a
He was the man in the
Tom
day.
had a full body.
Yes.
And it had a Phil Schaefer paint job.
That's as good as it gets, right?
Other than a George Cerny was the other great painter of the time, and he was out of California. And I'm looking at this thing, and this is 1978. Turnkey nitro car with another complete engine with stack injectors, and these were Mondello head, or not Mondello. They were elephant heads that were made by. They were called elephant head or Mastodon heads. Elephant was the 426 Mastodon heads that were made by, God, I can't remember the guy's name. He ended up making a billet head for these 392s, which was the first generation Hemi.
Yep.
This. And then Whitey Jensen, he lived probably about 4 miles from our house on Baseline out there in Aloha. He had not one, not two, but nine complete 392s sitting on pallets.
My God.
He was going to sell all of those engines, the turnkey car, plus another turnkey nitro engine and a trailer for $5,000.
No, you're full of shit. That's not possible.
1978.
You missed a couple decimals.
Nope, 1978,
Oh, my-
$5,000.
I could've gone all
If
day
you
without
go
hearing
back,
that. That
go
breaks my
back and
heart.
look at stuff. Hey,
Oh, my God.
Gary Densham sold his one funny car that he ran down in Australia. Came back, sold for $3,500. The Jungle Gym funny car that we restored, that was Claire Sanders' cars, it sold for $2,500. This was, like we said, it was a different time. But anyways, and that was back
depressing.
then when you go to the wrecking yard and you just pull out a 392 out of an Imperial.
Right.
And my dad's like, I don't know, because he and Dave wanted to build a turbo car. So they go and look at Chuck Tiller's funny car. Chuck Tiller had a car that was for sale. And they go and look at another car. And then they find out about this car. This car was Kenny Goodell's car. Kenny Goodell had a crash. He had a sponsorship called Gaffer's Fish and Chips, a restaurant that is still in business in Tigard.
How the hell you
And
remember all this?
So, well, because it was either that and girls. Those were the only two things in my life at that time. Still is at this time. Although I do have a grandson, so it's a little girl, little boy.
And a wonderful bride, too.
Oh, yes. Well, no, girls. That's what I'm saying. Right. So anyways, I digress. We go to this thing, and we go and we look at this at Kenny Goodell's place. He lived in Tigard off of Walnut Street. He moved into the house that his father had built. His father Kenny was adopted.
Oh,
and Kenny was a only child. He was adopted. His parents adopted him when they were late in life, like in their mid-40s. And so they doted on Kenny. This piece of property, if anybody, maybe it's been excavated. We always joke about it because there's probably 6 to 20 426 Hemis buried in the dirt. Kenny and Hermes would blow something up, and they just would push it over the bank and cover it with dirt because his father was a contractor and had excavating equipment.
Oh, that kills me.
Kenny and Twig story really quick. They race about, and this is Balboa. This brings you into this whole thing full circle. They race at Balboa on a Thursday night. Friday night is PIR.
Oh, wow.
That's how they used to. I mean, back then they lived back to back
yeah,
races.
Absolutely.
It was literally the best time of any time. Truly was.
But the glamour that was perceived was not the reality of driving all that time.
God, and Pam has the best stories. Not in dualies, in ramp trucks a lot of times.
Ramp trucks.
Anyways.
Yep.
So Twig had burned a piston. And they were gonna go, and they had known. He and Kenny had known they were just gonna go. They couldn't get to PIR because it was closed. So they were gonna go to Kenny's house, park the rig there. Twig and Barb, Kenny and not Shannon. Anyways, his wife. They were going back, and Kenny was not married at that time. That's why he got the name Action Man.
It has nothing to do with the race car.
Oh, he was the action man. Anyways, Twig and Barb, they're there. Barb's asleep in the truck. They pull in, and Kenny had a phone in the 3-car shop where the race cars were. They pull in back in. Twig's unrolling the thing. And Twig, he tells the story. He says, I remember this like it was yesterday. I get the car unloaded. Kenny walks over to the phone. It's like 1:30 in the morning. They drove back from Balboa after like 11 o'clock, whatever. And Kitty picks up the phone. Mom, we need some milk. Bring us some milk. We need some cookies too. Maybe some coffee. We're gonna be here for a while.
Wow.
And that's how he talked to his mom.
Oh my word.
And hung the phone up. And Twig just like, are you kidding? That's your sweet mother who's in her 70s. How dare you talk to that dear woman that way?
Yeah.
And she comes out, Donnelly, here you go, boys.
Wow.
You know, and Twig was like gracious. Yeah, Mom, thanks. And that's a good Twig and Kenny story.
That's cool.
But,
that's very cool.
So we go to the same shop because Kenny's living there, and this car was there, that turbocharger car. And
that's different.
It's the same car, but that's later.
Okay.
So,
good Lord.
Anyways, we buy the car. Dad buys the car from Kenny. We buy the car as a rolling car with the bell housing for $4,500.
What year was that?
1978. October 1978.
Of course, $4,800 then, I don't know what it is now, but it's triple that. But even then, that's kind of stupid money.
Jack Slavic built the car. Jack Slavic chassis. That body
I remember Slavic. He was up in Portland, wasn't he?
He lives in Tualatin.
Yeah.
Jack built one of the Revolution cars. He built all the Twig's cars. He repaired the Duster for Twig. You know, Jack he was a prolific builder here in the Northwest in the 70s and early 80s. He built Steve McGee's funny cars. Anyways, he's called the Reverend to Horsepower is what they called it, even though he never touched an engine other than a Model T. But anyways, so we get this car and Dad's doing whatever Dad's doing, and he finds and there's a gentleman out of California, great individual, God rest his soul, Nick Arias Jr. Nick Arias.
Oh, Nick Arias.
Nick Arias.
Yeah,
Nick Arias, he had this great history of racing, land speed racing and drag racing in the 50s, came out of the Korea War. I'm very good friends with his son and his grandsons.
I remember that.
Wonderful people.
Remember that.
Wonderful people. Nick, God, he was just an awesome dude. Anyways, Nick worked at Venolia Pistons. He left Venolia Pistons to start Arias.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And what he wanted to do is he wanted to do his own piston, and then he decided to put a Hemi head on a Chevrolet.
I vaguely remember that.
So he created a Hemi head for a Chevrolet, and it was kind of a goofy thing with a third rocker arm to make it work, so they could make
third rocker arm.
Yeah,
I'd love to see that geometry.
It was a slave rocker that ran the push rod because they couldn't get the
geometry sucked that bad.
Well, it's just
I thought our Hemi geometry sucked, but it's better than that.
So anyways, that's what he did, but he got it fixed. And he did that, but then he decided, he came up with a different diversion, and he created what's known as the 8.3 Hemi.
Yep.
That was the 8.3 Arias Hemi that he built heads for that went on Joan Rodex cylinder blocks.
Oh, wow, okay.
And it had standard geometry, or rocker gear and stuff like that. The problem that he saw with it was that there was, he couldn't get the clamping around the cylinders, so he designed his own motor, which was the 10-liter, which is the motor that we have in that. We went down Dad put a downstroke on that motor. He bought a complete long block with an injection manifold, or a blower manifold. Steve Montrelli was the engine guy. Look up Steve Montrelli. He is probably one of the best, most undersung crew chiefs of all time. He did a lot of crew chief stuff with him, and Dale Poldy literally dominated the early 70s for Mickey Thompson. Anyways, and he left to go to drag boats, and then he went to work for Nick Arias because Nick's engines ended up in a ton of drag boat stuff. So Dad buys this 10-liter, which is block number 003.
Oh, wow.
So it's the third 10-liter. Nick had designed the idea to raise the camshaft. He was trying to take some of the benefits of a 392, which, for those of you that don't know, it's just 10 head studs. It's just a row at the top, a row at the bottom, holds the rocker gear, clamps the rocker gear in the head, all down there. Yep. As opposed to the Chrysler, which you have the one under the valley, or a Chevrolet, which you have one under the exhaust port.
We have an inner head stud that's in the valley.
Yeah.
And you fight getting the nut and washer on there with lifters.
And so Nick designs this engine, but then he sees, this is really weird for push rods to be going down like this. Let's bring it and go straight across. So the camshaft was raised. The camshaft center line to the crankshaft is like almost 12 inches. It's way up there.
Really?
Push rods literally are at 180.
Oh,
and
my God.
his thought process with that was that you were literally, first of all, back in the day when they were blowing stuff up, you were taking the cam barrel out. That, cast block where the camshaft was, the rod had come up and it had destroy a block.
Yeah.
And so he had.
In fairness, the cast blocks weren't designed for that, and they weren't all that strong compared to what we have now.
Whether it was cast iron or aluminum, and the other thing was they kick a pan rail out. So he had bolt-on pan rails, and that was part of the 8.3 deal as well as the 10-liter.
So a bolt-on pan rail had to be revolutionary because you'd save a lot of blocks that would otherwise been junked. That's
correct.
A big deal.
And Nick Arias was brilliant in a lot of those ways. Nick Arias is one of the few people that I've ever found out that has 7 Bonneville records in one event.
Wow.
And he did that back in 1955 with a Roadster. And I mean, that was back when they could do they didn't have to wait the next day. They could do the record. It was, but anyways,
they go into
very brilliant, very sharp individual, wonderful human being. Anyways, so Nick designs this motor, and Nick was great at creating things, but that's all he wanted to do. He wanted to come up with a better mousetrap, create it, and then he'd walk off to the next project.
Wow, turn it over to somebody. Wow.
Or he'd keep it internal, but he just didn't have the marketing arm. That's why Brad Anderson is so successful, because they had the ability to supply the parts. And, I mean, Nick's stuff, honestly, it's now called Miner Brothers. It went from Nick to Joe Fontana, from Joe Fontana to Bob Miner. They're still running Nick's basic design.
Right, and one of the claims to fame, am I wrong here, that you can take the head off without removing the supercharger?
In 2003, Keith Stark won the U.S. Nationals. I was helping him on the semifinals and the finals.
Keith Stark injected
nitro car.
One of the early adopters.
We warmed the car up for the semifinals, and it was pumping oil. It had, number 2, it was pumping oil.
Oh no!
I had the cylinder head off of the car before the oil pan came off.
Oh my!
Because
God.
all you have to do is just you take 5 bolts. And the manifold stays on the engine, and you pull the cylinder head off.
That's so brilliant.
Because Nick had worked on this stuff, and it's like, why do you want to do all of this other stuff? So that's what. So we had that.
That's crazy.
So we have the 10-liter. We put that together, and we come up with the turbocharger thing. Well, everybody had been doing 2 turbochargers. Well, why do you want to do 2 when you can do 4?
Why do you want to do 4? You can do 27. For God's sake. I mean, good
part
Lord.
of the thing was this is just when Formula One was starting to go to turbochargers.
Okay.
And Renault had come up with a V6 engine that ran 3 turbochargers. So they had all the exhaust coming into 3, and they were trying. The whole purpose was trying to get rid of the lag.
Get rid of the lag. You got one for low, medium, and high. That's cool.
We had a lot of problems with Twig. Drove this car for us because we have that great relationship with Twig, and we would use nitrous to spool it up to get it going.
Wow!
And we sprayed it into the air.
I don't know how you get the fuel curve worked out.
Well, the fuel it was a goofy thing. It had a boost pressure sensor that Kinsler Fuel Injection developed off of some of their Porsche stuff. So you would have a boost sensor signal that would go over the top of it, kind of like a BDK.
Yeah.
But the BDK doesn't use manifold pressure.
No.
You were going off of so when the manifold pressure came up, it would close this diaphragm that would send more fuel to the engine.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's what that boost sensor did.
That's crazy. So back to your 2 or 3 stories ago, it was, but that had run really well, mastered the tune-up with. And I said, did they have a computer on the car? Which I knew they didn't, but whatever that car was now, to try. Getting the tune-up correct on one of these things is so difficult because you come back and you're right, plugs, bearings, leak number if you want to do that, driver input. If you didn't look at the computer, then what all you got to look at, and you got to figure out. It sounds easy, like it wants more fuel, it wants less. Where?
Yeah.
Did we dick it up on the burnout and we're adjusting it on the run? Because this damage, this carnage could have been because there wasn't enough fuel in it for the burnout.
Right.
You got to figure that out. Now, okay, we got that out of the way. We're not hurting anything. How do you know? You got to go do a burnout and shut it off and drag it back and take it all apart. And nobody wants to do that.
Well, but you're correct. But that's where Rob Bruins and Gaines Markley would do that.
See,
they would.
How do you know otherwise? You have no way to know.
So they would do the burnout, and they'd immediately pull the plugs. Plugs look good. Okay, they put the plugs back in it. They'd go and Rob would run it out, and he would literally lift and shut the mag off.
That's the only way.
And then they'd look at it, and then they'd start and they'd start. And Gaines was a machinist, build engines, and they'd start looking at bearings and start. So that's really how they started to develop the tune-up for that car without a computer. Now we have the computer that basically tells us when we screw up.
Yep. Yep. You got to listen to what the motor wants, and the computer is such a huge part. But back to my point. So we've got to figure out it's not on the burnout. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's on the run. Great. Where?
Yeah.
Because it could be at the step. It could, because we're changing things. I've got the command module on my car, the Leahy Electromotion command module. I can adjust the ignition timing, and I can adjust the fuel input to the motor 15 times in a 5-second run.
Yeah.
Because you got to know where it needs more fuel, because the load is not consistent all the way down the track.
Right.
Trying to figure that out without a computer like they did, you just take your hat off. Like, oh my God, I don't know how you can figure that out.
Well,
it's crazy.
Then you, I mean, it's so. It's really where, at some point, we talked about, the driver's not driving the car anymore. At some point, the tuner's not tuning the car anymore. The computer's trying to tell them how to tune it.
Yeah.
But at some point, and bearings don't lie.
No.
Spark plugs don't lie.
No, they don't.
And it's
drivers on this.
And drivers never lie.
No, I was just saying.
We're just
never
confused.
Made a mistake. Yeah. They've never made one mistake. It was that damn car.
Yeah. But anyways, at some point you still have to go back to the basics. And it was really, I go back to what I was taught when I was in drafting in high school. We had to hand write out all the letters. And I'm like, my dad and my grandfather are draftsmen, and they got this little stencil, and they just kind of do it. And he goes, if you don't know how to do it the original way, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, we talk about the greats that have affected our lives, the Jerry Darians, those people of the world.
Yes.
They still go back and look at the bearings. They still go back and look at the plugs, because those don't lie.
Nope. That's absolutely right. All right.
So that's the turbo car. That's the early 80s. We ran it for 3 years, bankrupted the family. Mom said she was going to divorce Dad if he didn't park it. The picture, jump if you could, not to that picture, but the next picture, that shows the engine. 4 turbos.
Hang on. This is not going to be high res, kids, so hang on. Sorry for our luck here. But you can see the Arius motor there.
Yeah, it's an Arius 10 liter.
Collector type headers?
Yeah, so we had 4 into 1 with 2 turbos. And what was really funny is at an idle, the top turbo would be spinning its brains out, and the bottom turbo wouldn't be moving because it was it was selectively taking what boost it needed.
Right.
This probably would have worked had Dad not tried to out-trick himself, which is what he did because he designed cars on paper and didn't do them practically. Was that plenum, that aluminum, that box that sat on top?
There, yeah.
We were not getting any air into the engine that we needed to have. He was looking at square inches and not cubic inches.
Oh wow.
And it's all when we tune an engine at cc's per turn.
cc's per turn.
Or cubic inches of volume and all of that stuff. And had we had that top of that plenum box been increased by 2 inches, that car would have run.
Wow.
But
you don't know what you don't know, and that's a bitch.
Dad had not had any practical experience. I was the kid out working on stuff all the time, and I got, we parked the car, we broke it at Yakima. That was the last time that car run in that configuration with Twig. Took it home. We put the car back together, rebuilt it because it had dropped a valve.
Oh, that's very bad.
So we sent the head. We sent the head down. Nick fixed the head. We got everything fixed. And we put the car basically whole together. And it sat from 1984 until 1990. I got married in 1987. My daughter was born, Noelle was born in December of 88. And if there's one thing that I hate most of all is race cars that sit.
That's not what they're meant for.
Yeah,
they're not show cars. They're race cars.
It's like a very pretty lady that sits at home and nobody talks to her. That's not right.
No, it's not.
So I moved to the second picture.
All right, now
so I take that car. And I'm talking with Gene Adams, Lean Gene Adams, one of the great tuners of all time.
On injected fuel. They run a car in the
Heritage Series.
Called the Heritage Series still. That is called a fuel.
Yeah.
This is bizarre. Our class is called Top Alcohol Dragster, and you can run a blown alcohol motor or an injected fuel motor. Yeah. Their class is called a fuel, and you can run a blown alcohol motor or an injected fuel motor. Same sanctioning body.
Tomato. Anyways.
And he's brilliant at it.
So I was very frustrated. So that's a very, I'm still handsome, I think.
That's you?
But a lot thinner.
Holy crap.
And thank God you
Where's
can't.
the rest of you?
Thank God you can't see the mullet. Anyways, so I got a set of stack injectors from Gene Adams.
Stack injectors are
for
just
the
cool.
Yeah, but they are ever-loving mother pain in the butt to tune,
can only
because
imagine.
because the motor, as it heats and cools and heats and cools, and what happens is you got this long shaft, and so it twists. So the idle, you're always chasing the idle. Now Keith Stark figured out how to do that with a balance tube. So you have an air tube that goes all underneath the barrel, underneath the butterfly. So no matter what happens at the butterfly, it's like air bleeds that we put in, and you just tune it that way, so you can sit. Works perfect. Works perfect.
That's crazy.
Got my license in that car. Now you got to remember that had a 12-inch Crower glide clutch, a 12-inch.
12. That's bigger than we run now.
Right, 12-inch.
Wow. Our clutch now is 10.5 inch.
7/16 stands, 12 stands.
Oh my!
Yeah.
12 stands.
Yeah, 12 stand. It was.
Why?
I'm sorry, not a 12-inch. It was an 11-inch. Because they were 7/16, and it was the Crower thing. That
huge.
deal in the fuel car only lasted for 1 year. They went back to bigger stands. That's when they went to the half-inch stud stands. Anyways, had a Crower guide clutch in that car because that's what we ran. A Lenco 3-speed, 188 low gear, 390 rear end. This was the combination we ran in the turbo car. And I go, this is the parts I got. I don't have money to buy to try and make it work on an injected deal. But I put the injector on it, ran it on alcohol, went out there. I made 8 laps in the car, got my license. I went as fastest as a 776 at 188 mile an hour. But at 1980, and when I saw that Whipple and McCullough car at 5 years of age, and my mother wrote about this in my baby book that she kept.
Wow, no kidding.
I've got it.
That's
it's
cool.
Literally my mother's handwriting. Ronnie wants to have his own funny car.
Oh no! Wow, that's
so
crazy.
I get that, but that's not my own funny car because Dad still owns it and controls it. And so we play with this a little bit. It doesn't quite work out great. Lyle Canham helped us on that car, who is Craig Canham's father, who just passed away. Canned ham. Lyle Canham, the connection with that was he bought the Whipple and McCullough Cuda, and he was the guy that gave Jerry Ruth the proctological exam at PIR with the race car. Drove his race car up Jerry Ruth's ass. It was great.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. That was the end of Lyle Canham. Gorgeous car, again, painted by Phil Schaefer. So we're sitting with this thing. We're trying to figure out what to do. And I remember Grant Springer and Price and Springer. I can't remember what Price's first name was, but Grant Springer, the Price and Springer injected nitro funny car that we raced against in the early 80s. And they had a big block Chevy with a tunnel ram. They were out of Eugene, and they ran really pretty hard with that car.
Okay, time out. So if you're not familiar, we've got in the top alcohol dragster class, you can run blown alcohol, Joey Severance, 5-time world champion, or you can run injected nitro. You give up the supercharger for the fuel.
Bill Reichert, 5-time champion.
Yeah, that too.
God rest his soul.
Yeah, that's very sad. Anyway, damn it, what were we talking about?
So we've got this car, and I have the conversation, and Nick Arias says, have you talked to Gene about running injected nitro?
That's it. So the point is that we've had the blown alcohol and the injected nitro in the top alcohol dragster class, but in the top alcohol funny car class until this year, it was blown alcohol. You couldn't do that.
Not true.
Back in the pro comp days.
Back in the double B funny car days too. So pro comp, they had separate classes, and then they had pro comp. And in pro comp, you could run dragster, funny car, and altered.
Yes,
which is what Ace Manzo started out with, was an altered.
I didn't know that, but I knew it put it all together.
They put it all together, and then what they ended up doing. So to make it, because the dragsters were running quicker than the funny cars, which they still do.
Yeah.
Dragsters would eliminate it down to the final car. Funny cars would eliminate down to the final car. That was the final round.
I got you.
Dragster versus funny car.
Yeah.
And that was back in the Jerry Darian Green Gang days.
Yeah.
All of that great history. But back then, twin engine cars, wedges. I mean, that was back when ingenuity was at its finest. So this thing is like, not doing so. I mean, it's okay. Clint Thompson had bought Roger Orr's funny car, which I was involved with as a 15-year-old kid, which ultimately became the first Tiki Warrior. And they were trying to do, and SIFCA was just kind of all the rage in California.
SIFCA, California Independent Funny Car.
California Injected Funny Car Association. Because that's originally it started out as only injected funny cars. Because back then, the double B cars, there was a blown alcohol car.
Right.
So it was originally just
Wait.
injected.
Is this an NHRA sanctioned class? Because SIFCA was not.
No.
All right. Well, that's what I'm talking about.
It was just an association, but they called themselves California Injected Funny Car Association. I'm going back to 1984.
Okay.
When that group started.
Okay, but that's not NHRA. That's an association.
Correct.
Within NHRA, you've had, if you want to run fuel and not go big show stuff, obviously, then you've got to run Top Alcohol Dragster because the injected fuel class in funny car did not exist until this year.
Correct. Well, they ran injected nitro funny cars up until 1984. And that was the last year that an injected nitro funny car entered at a national event.
In what class?
In top alcohol funny car.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if you go back and you look, and if you go back, I think as far as 1988, the rule book still had weight breaks for injected nitro funny cars in the alcohol category. Might have been 85 or 6. But anyways, they still had. So I go, I want to build an injected nitro car. And at the time, Gene Bergstrom was the division director,
Mm-hmm.
and I called Gene, and he goes, "No, you can't do it."
Yeah.
What do you mean? There's no? He says, "Well, we basically eliminated that from the class because nobody's run it for the last 5 years, so you can't do it." It's like, crap, great.
Yeah, that sucks.
So that kind of, it's like, so then what do we do? And this was 92. So then we start thinking about, and that was when the Superstock Drag Race Illustrated article came out about the Funster.
Oh, God, I remember that. Yeah,
the Dale
yeah.
Armstrong idea to come up with the ultimate dragster, which was a funny car chassis, 300 inches long. So Slavic starts to build us a car. We trade that car to Jack Slavic because Jack always wanted to have one of his cars.
I don't know about that.
So we started to build an injected nitro car because we didn't want to, as our friend Jerry says, we didn't want to build a part slinger.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we start doing the injected nitro thing. And that ultimately goes to 96, 97. We bought Ken Zizzo's Yahara car from Robert Reel. Ken Zizzo ran A-Fuel back in those days. He was out of Nevada. And we bought a roller. We ultimately ended up selling that car and bought the Larry Frazier car that Kim LaHaye drove and Maurice DuPont.
Oh, wow.
Swindle car,
that.
beautiful car. Had 2 top loader rear ends, carbon brakes. That's when I had the gear stuff. And
right.
We're starting to get into that 2000. Okay.
Moving on here.
So we kind of have a break. I go through a break. I work for Hartley's. I didn't put any pictures of Hartley stuff. And 2006, I work for Gregg. We have fun. We end on a sour note. Not personally. We've always been friends, but broke the car at Medford. That was the last time we ran it. And so it's like, and at that point in time, Alice says, "Hey, I need you to come work at this race." And I tell Gregg, "Hey, I'm going to go. Al needs me." So I go do that. And that really starts kind of my, what I would call full-time with Al Hartley.
Sure.
First as a fly-in guy, and then I moved back and I drove a truck with him. Right. Anyways, so I kind of go through that period of 2006 when Al Hartley has a brilliant idea. IHRA is bringing nitro funny cars back. So let's run an IHRA nitro funny car and a top fuel car. And guess what? We don't have 2 computers or 2 fuel systems, so we'll just swap between.
Oh, my God.
It was horrible.
Oh, God.
That
would suck.
Yeah. So I moved back to Kansas. I spend most of 2006 on the road until June. It's just not fun. And I had always said, if drag racing is not fun, I need to stop.
Yeah, what's the point? Because it's way too damn much work.
It's just, and we went to the starting line with that car in 2006 39 times, and we never made it past 50 foot.
Oh, you're kidding.
It was very frustrating.
39 times. And
with the dragster, and it never made it 50 foot. It would either drop a hole or shake the tire. It was just incredibly frustrating.
Man.
We were fighting a bunch of stuff, and I love Alan and Rachel
that's
to
the
death.
definition
Alan
of
and Rachel are
perseverance.
the best people, and we had some really good people on the team. We were plagued with a few problems that we just weren't quite on top of.
Yeah.
We were doing Ace clutch discs. That's when Ace was first starting, and those Ace clutch discs would not wear. They just wouldn't wear. And then we put another.
Was it a higher Rockwell?
Well, it was Rockwell was not much higher. But it was just...
They have a different personality.
They do, completely. I mean, they are literally like frickin' frack between those and the Ray Bestis clutch, which Ray Bestis was that at the time.
Right. Now Bonifanti does that. So there's, on these injected cars, there's black magic parts of the car, and that's going to be fuel, compression, mag, clutch. Right?
And the blackest is the clutch.
Right, and that's the point, is you can map it out, and I've got really detailed notes on how to set the clutch up, but the disc material that you have zero control over is going to dictate what actually happens. It's really challenging. So you're running low on discs, and you find out, well, I can get some from Ace. You buy them, and I'm not saying anything about them being good or bad. It's not the point. It's that they are different.
Yeah.
Okay. In fact, I bought a bunch of clutch discs from Rick Hinkleman. He was so kind to help me out. He didn't know me a darn thing. And we were low on discs. So I got all these discs in. Well, they're Rockwell's 20 to 30 points higher than what I'm used to running.
Right.
I couldn't get the car to get out of its own way.
Yeah.
So I never figured out what it wanted. So, like, God, I don't need more variables, for God's sake. So trying to control that, and even if you do get the same exact Rockwell and the same friction material from the same company, they're still going to have different personalities.
And something that, and this is not a Gregg Lawrence only issue. This is an issue with a lot of racers at this level. They can't. I've had the good fortune of going to I'm friends with Bonifant, Robbie, and Nick both. But
yep.
Yeah,
I know them both.
Nikki. Anyways, went there, been to their factory, had a Bonifant clutch in the car, saw how they built the discs, and they hired the one guy from Ray Bestis. And back then, it was really interesting. And what happens is the big show teams that have more wallet than the Gregg Lawrences of the world, and I'm alcohol guys.
Yeah.
It's the way it is. They would go in and they found out that when Ray Bestis was making it, it was a union shop, and this one guy would make a batch in his 8-hour process. He would stir up, it was like a cake batter, as it was explained to me. And he had this,
of sintered
and it was
iron.
of sintered iron, and then he would make these paddles and cook them, and then those would get attached to the steel discs.
Right.
And this guy would basically make a pallet on his 8-hour shift.
Right.
And so that's when Dale Armstrong and when Austin Coyle
yep.
and Alan Johnson started finding this stuff out. And so they would literally buy, we're only looking for this guy's pallet.
Right.
We're looking for pallet,
Right.
And they would try to complete. What days did that guy work?
Yes.
And they would do stuff like that.
It's that picky.
It's really, I mean, it is truly, it's black magic, it's art, it's science. Dick LaHaye said it great, and Dick LaHaye was the guy. Leave the engine alone. Just make power and manage it in here. And when you think you got it figured out in here, it's going to go, ha ha. Yeah. Let me show you what you're going to do,
Jack.
Yeah.
But they would buy that palleted disc
Yep.
because they're doing all they can to control the variables. That every damn disc in that pallet
exactly
is the same as the next one.
Exactly.
We don't have that luxury. I just ordered 20 discs from Bonifani and think that I'm all that in a sack of chips.
Yep.
20 freaking discs, but that's $3,600.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
in my budget, I got to choke on that and it's not the $3,600 isn't that big a deal until you go. I need 36 for that, and I need $2,000 for the barrel of fuel at the track.
Sure.
And I need to buy pistons, and that's a couple grand.
Yep.
And it's all of it together that becomes such a dirty bitch. It's
Yep.
not one number.
Right.
That's really hard. But if you had the resources to buy that whole pallet, you'd be way better off, and that's what they can do.
And then post-COVID, we found out nobody inventories anything, and getting supply. It's just horrible.
Everything changed.
It's horrible.
I think.
And post-COVID, I'm now 58, and so we need to do a quick commercial break. If you've got them, smoke them. I am 58 years old, and my walnut is telling me I need to go to the bathroom.
Time out, everybody. We'll be right back with you with part 2